Hello, my friends and fellow bloggers, and what have you, and people who occasionally frequent my channel, which I notice is up to 35 to 37 subscribers, of which I'm grateful and surprised I had this many at all, even after the first year. In fact, strange because it was 37, then it got down to 35, now it's 36, and it waves up and down. I don't do I don't do any book reviews, so this is almost a bit new for me. And it's something I wanted to share. I don't know if if you're familiar with David Weber's work or not. He's done a number of series, and some of them are very interesting. Some of them can be a little dry at times. This particular series is called the Safehold series. I've read all of them at one time or another. This is the second. There's another book after this. I was able to get both these recently. Ironically enough, I bought this one. I paid $10 for it, and then went to Edward R. Hamilton's discount bookseller and discovered that they were selling the hardback copy version of this for like $7. And I was a bit annoyed. I wasn't about to take this across town, go back to the bookstore, to the B. Dalton that's out there on the west side, spend $5 of the gas to get $2 back. It wasn't point to it. But the premise here was that in humanity's future, they encounter an alien species that pretty much eradicates humans. Humans had recently, in time, had developed space travel, was settling, expanding, and while not totally large, were sufficiently capable of defending themselves. And then they ran into the Gorba, or however it is, these bogeyman that pretty much destroyed humanity. And in the very last attempt to get a colony, a convoy of would-be colonists to allow humanity to survive what was obviously going to be the destruction of Earth, they were able to successfully get away from the Gorba, and they went far out into the reaches of space, all of Battlestar Galactica, without any of the adventures, because everybody was in cold sleep. They arrived at this planet that they called Safehold, and they were some 10 million Adams and Eves, as they called themselves, or were awakened. But in the process, there was a handful of people in the command who decided that the best way to protect humanity from the Gorba was to prevent them from developing high enough technology that would send out any kind of electronic signatures or energy signatures into space, which would then eventually be picked up by the Gorba scouts and draw them in like plague. And to do this, they masterminded their own religion, loosely based off of the Catholic Church and several other major religions of the era, and they corrupted it completely. They reprogrammed to some degree all these colonists, so they wiped out their memories of everything prior to going into cold sleep. So when they came out of cold sleep, they didn't remember their old lives. They didn't remember they were from Earth and that they were survivors and so on and so forth. Now this is many, many, many years later, hundreds and hundreds of years later. This being awakes, and it's the conscious survivor of one of the junior officers of the fleet that escorted the colonists out, and she is transferred into basically an android or an avatar called a Pica, P-I-C-A. And the alters her appearance to take on a male form because of the timeline that's existing in the current Safeholdian world. The males tend to be, it's like the Middle Ages, and so, or prior to the Middle Ages. They still using, at the beginning, they're using crude trimarines and things of that nature, quadrines for ship movement, so on and forth, purposely have been stagnated in their technological advance by this so-called church that dominates the world. And we're not going into great details on it. The church has become corrupt. The corruption is thickened. This person calls herself Merlyn, becomes a guy, picks on this particular smaller nation that's in the process of going, for whatever reason or another, has cheesed off the leadership of the church, and they've decided because they're showing too much innovation and they're too much independence, they're going to step on them. So they stir up some neighboring kingdoms to send their fleets after these people. With Merlyn's help, he's able to initiate technical advancements and innovations without it seeming like he's coming up with it himself. And in the process, helps these little people develop better cannons, develop sailing ships like the galleons, and we lead ourselves, and eventually, with the intention of eliminating this church or resetting it to its proper path, and getting humanity prepared for the eventual arrival of the Gorba. Gorba will eventually arrive at some point. That's the assumption, and this a good set of books, I think, very good. Now, like I said, there's some dry sections. You can't have a series of books that, are 1,000 pages or so thick and not run into some sections that are a little dry, but there's some really good stories in there. And if you have a chance, if you've never read any of his stuff, I would successfully read it. Or suggest it. Some of his early stuff was on the Honor Harrigan series, and I read some of those, and they're actually really good. They're back from 30 years ago, so 30 good stuff. Recommend it. Hang on, thumbs up.